Hi guys, this is Stefan Zamit from neuronFX.com, and in this video we're going to have a look at how we can create very realistic fireworks right inside of After Effects without using any external plugins, so it will be totally in After Effects, and we're going to show the process from start to finish. So let's get started. So to start off, I'm going to create a new composition and I'm going to name it Firework. So click OK, I'm going to use Full HD resolution and click OK. Then we're going to simply create a new layer and I'm going to create a solid layer and I'm going to call this background. Perfect. And let's simply duplicate this layer, Ctrl D on your keyboard and hit enter on your keyboard to rename it, and then I'm going to call this now main particles. So this is where the main particles of the firework will be, and let's rename that to main particles 01. Perfect. And now I'm going to bring on an effect named particle playground, particle world. So let's simply bring in that effect right in there, and there it is. And if we play this, we can see a preview of this. So I'm going to switch this to add. The transfer mode of this, I'm going to make it to add, and I'm actually going to make my work area to a maximum of 20 seconds in here. Hit N on your keyboard and simply trim comp to work area. Perfect. So now the project is set up. So now all we need to do is basically play with this effect until we get that firework that we are looking for. So to do that, I'm going to go right over here and let's go through this very quickly. So I'm right inside of the effect, CC particle playground, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the birth rate. So I'm going to increase that to about 25. Perfect. And now that's loads and loads of particles in there. But don't worry, what we need to do is simply go to 0 seconds in there, zoom up a little bit in here, and I'm going to keyframe that. So toggle the stopwatch icon, and then from there we're going to move a few frames, maybe 5 frames, and turn that down to 0. Perfect. So let's see how that looks now. Quite good. So I'm actually going to, if I hit U on my keyboard to show the keyframes, to bring that down to maybe frame number 2. Let's have a look at that again. Perfect. And now let's play with the next thing, which is longevity. This is how long the particle animation will take place in here. So I'm going to switch that to 6 seconds, and you can already see it taking place in there. Now let's jump on to producer. The position of this, I would like to position it further back, so maybe somewhere like that, maybe around 20. And as you can see, it's very much back in there. Now what you need to do is go to the next section, which is the physics, and we're going to increase the physics of this with a large number in here. So if we type something like 30, that should be good, and there we go, we have our firework exploding right into the screen like that. Perfect. So let's now, the gravity is good, I think, so let's now add some resistance. So something like 5 would be good. Perfect. And like that, as you can see, the firework is almost built up. So the main shape is already looking quite good. As you can see, it is stopping with the with the resistance of the wind, and perfect, that looks quite good. So let's increase a little bit the extra in here, just to give it some randomness, and it looks quite good. Now we're going to pause just for a quick moment, just so we can have a look at this really cool product in here, the real firework kit for After Effects. And this is basically a pack of 100 editable fireworks, which are, as you can see, hyper realistic, very realistic, and super high resolution. So make sure to check this out. I'm going to leave a link for this in the description.
Audio Jungle.
let's jump to the next section, which is basically the particle itself. So I would like the particle to be an actual faded sphere instead of those lines. And let's see how it looks now. We can barely see them like this, but don't worry, we can increase a little bit their size, so to 0.5 maybe at the start, and then we can end them a little bit larger, so 0.7 maybe. Perfect. And like this, you can see that we have those tiny particle shards of the firework right there. Now, the main settings I think are quite right. Now, of course, right now the color of the firework is yellow. You can change this. Let's change this to something like blue. So I'm going to go to this. I'm going to make it a light blue first, and then simply end with a darker color, something like that. Perfect. And let's see how that looks. Very nice. So that's nice. Now another thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to physics, and I'm going to increase a little bit the resistance in here, something like 7 I think, just so it is more in the center in here. Perfect. And now don't worry about the intensity of this, since we can lift this a little bit up in here. So we can lift this up from here. So if we give this 100 in here, you can see already, we can see it a little bit more. But later on we will add some effects to this, so to bring it even, to make it even brighter. So we can add some size variation. I'm going to make sure that it is at 100, so that we have some randomness in the firework. Randomness is good, so perfect. And then I'm going to add some volume shade from right over here. So something like a 50%. As you can see, that adds some more randomness in here in the colors. Perfect. So it's doing quite good. What I am seeing in here, if I play it throughout, is that it is simply, as you can see in here, simply turning off in here. Now, one thing that makes firework really realistic, and one thing that fireworks do, is that at the end they kind of flicker out rather than simply fading out. So how can we add that flicker? So to do that, I'm simply going to create a new solid, and let's rename this to Fractal Noise. Perfect. And I'm actually going to add Fractal Noise matte in here, since I'm going to use it as a matte to this one. So that's done. Let's bring in the effect named Fractal. So Fractal Noise. Perfect. And what we need to do is simply increase the contrast of this and increase a little bit the complexity. And then let's go to transform and scale it down considerably, something like this, so that we can kind of have that grain pattern in there. Now, like this, it is static. So to bring on some animation, I am going to transform the scale actually. So something like this would be good, something like, I think 10. Perfect. Now, to bring on some animation here, I'm going to go to evolution, and you can either keyframe this or add a quick expression. So I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard and click on the stopwatch, and I'm going to type a quick expression, which is time times 100. And this is basically multiplying the value of the time. So in this case, for instance, 1 times 100 each time. So like that, it is always changing and animating, as you can see. Perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to see where I want to switch this off. And so let's say, if I hide this very quickly in here, they are fading out at between 5 and 6 seconds in here. and I would like them to start flickering at around 3 seconds. So let's go back to the Fractal Noise mat, and from here I'm going to keyframe the contrast and brightness. So add a stopwatch in there, hit U on your keyboard to bring those up, and I'm going to select those keyframes and push them back to where I would like this to kind of start in here, something around here, and I'm going to go to brightness now in here and increase that way up, and maybe decrease a little bit the contrast in here. Let's decrease that to 0. So like this, now you can see that this kind of fractal fades in like that. Perfect. And let's see how this looks. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the main particles 0, 1, and let's rename this to Fractal Noise Mat 0, 1, so that I have everything organized. And then I'm going to go to the track mat, and from the track mat I'm going to choose Luma Mat. And this will basically show the particles when they are on that white part of the fractal noise. So let's now hide that, and as you can see in here, as that fractal noise comes in, we start seeing that nice flicker, and they will simply go off at the end. So very, very nice. So I'm going to actually place these keyframes a little bit earlier so that I can see that flicker at an earlier stage. Perfect. And now all we need to do is add some randomness to all of this. So to do this, I'm going to simply pick these two and duplicate them. So Ctrl D on your keyboard, and that's once. So I have done this once. So now let's vary a little bit the values of this. So first of all, I can vary the fractal noise. So I can start it a little bit later, maybe just by repositioning the keyframes. Now go to make main particle 0, 2 in here, and let's add a little bit of longevity in here, maybe a 7.5, so that they stay longer. And then physics, maybe adjust a little bit that as well, the velocity. And then let's go to extra in here and give it a different random seed so that it has a different animation. Perfect. So let's see how this looks. And like this, as you can see, we have some more randomness in there. Very, very nice. So lastly, we're going to add a kind of explosion at first in here. So we're going to add some trails before these particles. So to do that, I am going to do the same thing in here and Ctrl D to duplicate those particles. And I'm going to rename this to trail particles. Perfect. And I'm going to, actually, I can leave them up here. It doesn't matter since we are on the add transfer mode in here. And so let's see what we're going to do. I want to create that kind of trail. So first of all, I'm going to go to the birth rate. I think is good for this. So let's see some settings in this. The birth rate is good. Longevity, I'm going to make it stay around 6 seconds. Now producer is good as well. The physics, I think it's quite good as well. I can leave physics and things like that like they are. What I can modify is the actual particle. So let's go to particle, and from here I can select. So let's see, I can select line. So let's select line, and as you can see now, we have that kind of trail in here. Very nice. So now what I need to do is I can, so let's see, this looks looks like that. Perfect. So of course this is quite intense right now, and I would like to fade this out at around here. So I'm actually going to decrease a little bit the opacity, the maximum opacity of this to around 50. Already better. Perfect. And now I'm going to add some more effects to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first add a radial blur. So CC radial fast blur would be good, like that. And like that we can make it look more like a trail. So of course we need to add some keyframes to this. So I'm going to, let's zoom in a little bit in here. I'm going to start this from 0, hit the stopwatch button, and to around here we're going to add to something like 30, and then back to 0 at around here. So let's see how that looks. Perfect. And then finally I need to add a fast blur. Fast box blur would be good at the end in here, so I can have a value of 1 throughout, just to give it some more blur in there. So add the stopwatch to that, and at the end I would like it to be, so I'm going to hit U on my keyboard and bring forward that keyframe to around here, and at the end I would like it to remain a little bit blurry, something like 30 maybe, or even less, something like, I think, let's see, like 5, so that I have that kind of smoky texture in there. Very nice. Now one thing that I can do as well is I can in the physics of this I can decrease a little bit the velocity, so something like a 25 maybe, so that it stays a little bit more on the inside in here. So velocity 25 or 27. Very nice. Perfect, it's looking quite good. And maybe what we can do is decrease a little bit the number of particles in here. So right now there's a lot of particles. Let's decrease them to around, let's go to the birth rate, to the first keyframe, and modify it to 10. Much better. Very nice. And just one last thing to add some more randomness to this, I'm going to add another effect, which is turbulent displays. So turbulent displays, bring that in there, and as you can see, this adds this kind of displacement to this layer, and this is of course too much, so let's reduce it to around 20, and let's reduce this size as well to around 10, and like that we have some randomness going on in there. Very nice. Finally, so the actual explosion is looking quite good. I really like how this looks. Maybe at the start in here it is a little bit intense, the trail particles. So what we can do is we can go to the particle world effect, and from here let's find the producer. So let's close everything and just find the producer, and I'm going to start it with a larger radius, so 0.1 maybe, and make this all at 0.1. This is still a little bit, it's better like this, and we can of course decrease a little bit even the opacity of this. So if we go to to T and we can keyframe this. So hit the stopwatch, go to around here, and do another keyframe in there. I'm going to end this at around 80%, and the first keyframe I'm going to start it at around 50%, just so that it is less intense at the start. Great, and that looks great. So now I'm happy with the main shape. So finally what I'm going to do, I'm going to add some glow in here, so just to bring everything together. So let's first go to background. I'm going to add a gradient to this. So gradient ramp, and let's make it look like a sky. So this color in here, I'm going to make it this dark blue, like that, and increase the ramp scatter right there. Perfect. And finally, let's go to create a new layer in here, new adjustment layer, and let's rename this to glow. I'm going to change the transfer mode of this to add, and from here we can add some glow. So glow, and let's do this. So like this, I'm seeing that this is a little bit too much in here already, so I'm going to make this a little bit darker. Perfect. And now I can go back to glow, and the first one I'm going to do it like a 20 glow radius and intensity 0.5. Then I'm going to Control D on my keyboard to duplicate the effect, and I'm going to now increase the glow radius just slightly, something around 70, and then duplicate one more time, and the glow radius I'm going to make it to around 300. And like that, as you can see, it's looking much better. Perfect. Now one last thing that we can do as well is maybe pick one of these in here and duplicate them together. So this is main particle 0 and 2 and the fractal noise for it. I'm going to Control D on my keyboard to duplicate, and like that you can see that they become brighter together. And we can even add some more particles in here, just so we can have some more color in here. So if I go to the main particle 03 in here, hit U on my keyboard, the birth rate I can increase that to maybe something like 50, and we can even add a little bit more. And as you can see now, we have that firework with all those particles. So, and I'm going to go to main particle 01, and I'm going to increase that birth rate as well, so something around 50 as well. Very nice. Lastly, let's change a little bit the color of the inner particles, of the trail particles in here. So we can go in there, go to particle, and from here we can tweak the color. I would like it to still end in that blue color, but I would like it to start with a more like this brown color, like that. And as you can see, like that, it is a little bit more hidden. So if we go to hit U on my keyboard to open up the keyframes and go to opacity, we can turn that back up to 100 maybe, to bring that back up. Perfect. So that's basically it. Let's have one quick look at this, and we're basically done, I think. So let's render this out and see how this whole thing looks. Then at the end in here, what I have done is I have grabbed the firework that I have already done in here and simply picked all the layers and duplicated this a couple of times, rearranged them in here. So as you can see, by picking the top and moving it around, we can rearrange the fireworks and built up a whole scene out of this. So as you can see, we have 3 fireworks, and if we play them, they look like this. Perfect. So feel free to play with this and do your own scene setups using these techniques. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial very much, and I'm going to stop with showing you this very cool product that we have. And this actually does realistic text fireworks right inside of After Effects without any plugins, so make sure to check this out. You can check the link in the description right over there. And with that said, we're going to close this tutorial, and I hope you really enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe for future videos. Thank you very much for watching.